You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and you're catching me on a great day. Today is my birthday. I am 38 years old today. God bless. So thank you for downloading this very, very special edition of the CherryPickin podcast. This is also the first day of fall. My birthday always coincides with the first day of fall, which is awesome because I'm a huge fall guy. Like, I love the fall season. I love the fall weather. It's just a perfect time of the year. Summer's fun, don't get me wrong. It's fun, but sometimes it's too hot. Like this summer, it was too hot, too humid. But fall is when we're kind of settling into cooler temperatures. Winter is on the horizon, but fall is such a perfect season. You can wear hoodies. The college football season, really, in my mind, is the fall season. So I'm very grateful, very blessed to see another year. But it makes me a little scared because it's like I'm getting closer and closer to 4-0. In my mind, the only thing that I equate with being 40 is when Mike Gundy went off. Do you remember that? It was like 17 years ago today. I was 21 years old. And I remember hearing that sound clip from Mike Gundy. It went a little like this.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid. Write something about me.
So it's because of that clip from 17 years ago that whenever I think about being 40 or a 40-year-old man, or hell, if I think about Mike Gundy himself, I just go back to that clip, that soundbite from Mike Gundy. And it scares me because, shoot, I'm only 2 years away from becoming a real man at 40. So, blessed to be 38, and I'm not trying to rush my time away. I'm not trying to rush to 40, but I'm just saying I'm closer to 40 than when I was 21 years old. So it's kind of scary, but definitely thankful to see a new birthday and to be recording this podcast with you all. We already had 4 weeks of college football, and there's some things I want to talk about as we kind of get into this episode. First of which, I want to start off with NC State. I love NC State. I ride for them, but I truly feel like it's going to be a long NC State season this year. The Wolfpack have dropped to 2-2 after the embarrassing 59-35 point loss to Clemson on Saturday. Now the Wolfpack hosts an NIU squad that is still hungry to continue making a name for themselves on the national level. We already know how NIU humbled a highly rated Notre Dame squad a few weeks ago and instantly became the darlings of college football this season. NIU did lose this past weekend, but I do think they could come into Raleigh and beat an NC State team that is quickly starting to spiral this season. NIU still is a capable team. I feel like they will be one of the better teams out of the MAC conference this year. Things are lining up that way, and I'm not going to be fooled in thinking that NC State is better than they are. I mean, they look pretty bad after these last few games, but it's no gimme that NC State will beat a MAC team. There's no gimme that they'll beat NIU. So I really could see it going either way, if I'm being real. I didn't think that NC State would come into Clemson on Saturday and do the unthinkable in beating Clemson, but I did think the game would be closer, or at least I was hoping for that. The game was so ugly. At the end of the first quarter, the Tigers were up 28-0 over the Wolfpack. I wound up turning the game off and taking a nap. My motivation to watch the game was gone pretty early on Saturday. That was a noon game, and my motivation to watch that game quickly went away because I was just over it. I truly was. The 59 points were the most points scored in an ACC game since Clemson's 62-17 point victory over Virginia in the ACC championship game 5 years ago. Apparently, the Tigers also saw its 800th win in the program history with a victory on Saturday, which makes them the 14th FBS team to reach that win total, and also the first ACC team to reach that win total. So shout out to the Clemson Tigers. The bright spot for NC State is that their true freshman quarterback, CJ Bailey, who started his first game for injured quarterback Grayson McCall, who apparently pulled himself out of the game last week. I think there were reports about an injury that happened. No one really knew what the injury was, but I heard it speculated that McCall actually pulled himself out. He just didn't have it. And, it is what it is. He said he didn't have it. We could clearly see he doesn't have it. I clearly could see in week 1 he's really not the guy. So he pulled himself out. So this is CJ Bailey's job to lose, honestly. And he looks like he will be a bright spot for the program, assuming he doesn't transfer out at the end of the season. Hopefully there's more to come from that young man. The thing that concerns me about NC State is that it's just the same story year in and year out. The conference is seemingly down this year. There's an opportunity for NC State to be one of the top teams in the conference, yet and still it's the same song and dance. NC State just isn't at the level it needs to be. Clemson humbled NC State pretty good. Tennessee humbled NC State pretty good. On one hand, you could say, well, NC State lost to teams that are ranked really highly in the AP poll. These are teams in their respective conferences that will probably be pushing for a playoff spot. Can't we call it for what it truly is? I mean, they just lost against 2 teams that are better than them. That doesn't mean the whole season is a waste or a wash. But in my opinion, at some point we've got to be pushing for more. The fans want more. I'm not content with just going to bowl games each year, winning 7 or 8 games a season. I want more than that. I want to be in the ACC championship game. I want to win a conference title. I want to go to the playoffs. It was within range for them to do that this year. Or at least that's what a lot of the preseason hype was telling us it would be like this year, that NC State would be pushing for something. Dave Doran, you got to give him credit for what he's done in the program. I mean, he's been there for 12 seasons. He's got an 83-60 record. He's the winningest coach in NC State history. That's all good and great. But if we can't push to the next level, I would rather end this relationship right now and try to move on to somebody else that can maybe help us get there. And I know the grass isn't always greener, but I'm tired of just being content with being mediocre, being average. We deserve more as a fan base. And I just feel like it's going to be the same thing this season. It's going to be the same story this season. We're just going to be good enough to make it to a bowl game, go to the Duke Mayo Bowl, go to the Chick-fil-A Bowl, go to the Belk Bowl. Like, I want more than that. I want to go to the playoffs. I want to win the ACC. And I'm also concerned that the team lacks some discipline and some self-control. Left tackle Anthony Benton, he was ejected in this game for NC State for spitting on a player. I don't know what's going on down there in Raleigh, but I don't like the trajectory of this team right now. It's getting to a point where I truly am wondering, is Dave Doran the right coach for this program? They'll live to see another week. They got NIU this week. They could win that game and they could, go on another run like they did last year. But I just need to start seeing improvement, and it just looks like it's the same story year in and year out. I really hope CJ Bailey is the guy. I hope they can develop him, but we've got to stop being over-reliant on the portal to get a quarterback, because it has showed us the last several years that the portal does not work for NC State. We're not getting the right type of players that can help us win. The bright spot is CJ Bailey, who I think is going to be on a good trajectory within the conference. I think he's somebody that you can build around, certainly, but we don't know if he'll stay. So, had to get that off my chest, but that was rough. Then this past weekend, we had College Game Day. I caught just a little bit of Game Day on Saturday. I didn't catch everything. I just caught maybe the first hour or so. Apparently, there's some noise on X about Lee Corso. He's 89 years old. He struggled a bit on the show, as he does a lot these days, honestly, if you watch College Game Day. Kirk Herbstreit sits next to Lee Corso and routinely helps him finish a thought and oftentimes is just gentle support for the coach. The show has been on for just as long as I've been alive, I think 37 years. Lee Corso has been there since day one, I believe. Herb Street came on later in like 1996. He was the young guy, and it was just three men on that program leading the desk coverage. So it was Lee Corso, it was Kirk Herbstreit, and it was also Chris Fowler. And I don't think Chris Fowler gets enough roses for what he's done in college football, just in terms of that program kind of being the anchor, being the lead on that program when it began. He does a lot of great stuff for tennis on ESPN as well. He's just a really talented dude, and I don't think Chris Fowler gets enough of his props. I really enjoy listening to him call games with Kirk Herbstreit. I love listening to his coverage on tennis, which I've gotten into more these past few years because my friend Casey's kind of pulled me over to tennis. But anyways, this program has been a staple in my life and in the lives of many other college football fans for such a long time. And Lee Corso has been there forever, and he's highly revered. We love the guy, and we know that he's getting older. Like, we know his time on the program is probably coming to an end, but I do want to just give props to Kirk Herbstreit for just being a good friend to Lee Corso and being that support for him. I saw online that he was getting a lot of love for helping his friend Lee Corso kind of get through a segment or whatever the case may be. And they're fully setting this up for Lee Corso to kind of step down, and Pat McAfee will kind of be that bombastic character. He'll probably do the headgear picks at some point once Lee Corso is no longer able to do it. But it's sad to kind of see a show you love kind of just, it's kind of evolved. It's turned into something else. There's more guys at the desk, and Lee Corso it was always fun watching that program as a young kid, and Lee Corso was always funny on that program. And we're just getting older to see him get older and kind of struggle to make it through a show. But I appreciate that they still have him on there. At first I was like, come on, like, it's probably time to move along here for Lee Corso. But this past season, and even at the end of last season, I've really come to realize that he is such a huge part of that show, that huge part of college football viewing experience for many people. And he's just doing his job that he loves with his crew, his other co-hosts. I mean, it feels like a family environment on College Game Day. I would really love to work on that show someday, or that was the dream I had as a young kid. I wanted to be on College Game Day, partly because of Lee Corso. Really appreciate what he's brought to the show, and I wish him well and wish him good health. I don't know what the future holds for him, and I don't know how long he'll be on the show, but I do appreciate what he's done, thus far in the show's history. He's definitely been a special part of the show. So I wanted to give Lee Corso and Kirk Herbstreit their flowers. If he was going to retire at the end of the season, I honestly wouldn't mind if maybe for the last episode of College Game Day, they took it back to the three hosts. So Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit. Just kind of do an old school game day, just those three hosts, and just do it like you used to do it. And for his last show, let Lee Corso ride out into the sunset, but just take it back to its original core group of hosts or co-hosts, and have Chris Fowler kind of lead that show. That would be really special if they could do that, or even for a segment, take it back to the original crew. I think that would be a really special way to end Lee Corso's run on College Game Day, whenever that day may come. And then on Saturday, just want to pivot to Temple football. I don't talk about Temple football as much as I used to back in the day, but you have to give props to Temple's field goal kicker, who nailed the longest field goal in Lincoln Financial Field history. And what will certainly be the biggest bright spot for Temple football this season, the Owls kicker Maddox Trujillo nailed the biggest field goal in his career in a game against Utah State on Saturday at the Link. Trujillo, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, he nailed a 64-yard field goal as time expired in the second quarter against Utah State. The kick is the longest made field goal at the top level of college football since 2008, when UTEP's Jose Martinez hit a 64-yard field goal 16 years ago. It's also the longest kick in the history of Lincoln Financial Field. in either college football or NFL game. Current Eagles field goal kicker Jake Elliott held the previous record with a 61-yard field goal. Maddox Trujillo's successful 64-yard field goal on Saturday was just 1 yard shy of the FBS record without the use of a tee. Former Kansas State and NFL legend kicker Martin Gramatica holds the record with a 65-yard field goal that he made back in 1998. And the best thing about everything is that Temple wound up winning the game by a score of 45-29, which is the Owls' first victory of the season. Next week, the Owls host the undefeated Army Black Knights at home next Saturday night. So shout out to the Temple kicker for nailing a field goal that is still talked about this weekend. I've seen it on social media. I've seen it on YouTube. That's a big deal. And shout out to the Owls for getting the win. That's awesome. Before we get to a break, I just want to talk about some random tidbits and random little thoughts I had about the college football season. First of all, I want to start off giving props to Florida State and Florida. They both get their first wins of the season. Florida State removed the weight off its shoulder on Saturday by getting the 14-9 victory over the Cal Golden Bears on Saturday. That's an ACC game. If you've been in hibernation and you didn't realize Cal is now in the ACC, they are. And Florida State got the victory. Florida State's quarterback DJU, he didn't have the best stats during the game, only completing 16 of 27 passes for 177 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But he did enough to help his Seminoles get its first victory of the season. The defense was also big during the game, recording 7 sacks on Cal. It's clear that Florida State is going to struggle this season, but at least they got the crucial victory on Saturday to kind of take the weight off their shoulders. The same goes for the Florida Gators out of the SEC. They were able to snap a 7-game losing streak for Florida against FBS opponents with the 45-28 victory over Mississippi State. In the win, Gators quarterback Graham Mertz passed for 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for a score during that win. The Gators had 503 yards of total offense during the victory against a Mississippi State team that will undoubtedly make its opponents look great week in and week out this season. So I'm sorry for Mississippi State that they have to kind of assume that role of making other teams look good, but it is what it is. This was a confidence booster for Florida, and they may wind up losing their head coach, Billy Napier, by the end of the season. I don't see how he survives and keep his job unless the Gators do unthinkable things and win out the rest of the games, which will not be easy. Florida's remaining 8 games include 5 teams that are ranked, 4 of which are in the top 6 in the AP poll. So chances are probably better than not that they're not going to be good this season. Like, they probably will have a losing record this season. And Billy Napier will be probably playing, trying to find another job at the end of the season. Then Colorado, talk about them briefly here. They win it big in overtime. Colorado found a way to win against Baylor with the help of a Shadur Sanders Hail Mary throw to LeJontay Wester in the end zone at the end of regulation to send the game to overtime. Colorado wound up winning the game in overtime, and they are now 3-1 on the season and 1-0 in the conference. The road doesn't get any easier for Colorado the rest of the way, but I would be shocked if the Buffaloes don't make it to a bowl game this season. They're finding ways to win. They're finding ways to stay together as a team. There's some games on their schedule that I think they can be favored in, that I think they will win. And I think if it all comes together, they will go to a bowl game. And I think for Deion Sanders, that's a win. Nobody thought that they would be undefeated and pushing for a college football playoff spot. But if they can have a winning record or at least go to a bowl game, I think that's a success. If you are a fan of Colorado or just a college football fan who's analyzing the game and the impact Deion Sanders is having on it, that is a win if Colorado can go to a bowl game. And I know we're only 4 weeks into the season. We've got a lot of games to play still, but I like the start for Colorado at 3-1. They're finding ways to win close games, and those close wins matter. Then UNC, they get embarrassed by JMU. I know things aren't looking too rosy in Raleigh, but the fact that UNC allowed JMU to come into Chapel Hill and post 70 points against them in a 70-50 point loss on Saturday is embarrassing as hell. I don't know what's worse. NC State losing to ranked teams that are probably a lot better than them, or UNC losing to JMU. That's rough. I probably would take NC State having the 2-2 record right now compared to UNC getting embarrassed by JMU. These two teams on Saturday combined to have over 1,200 yards of total offense, but sadly, they also combined to have 21 penalties for 181 yards. UNC also had 5 turnovers in this game, which didn't help matters at all for the Tar Heels. Mac Brown had some post-game comments, and he said, and I quote, "Embarrassing day, shocking day. You shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period. There are no excuses. Our defense looked awful. We had communication problems. We had missed tackles. We had guys wide open for a touchdown. It can only come back to one person, and that's me," said Mac Brown. "I've hired everybody on the staff and signed every player on this team. I am at fault 100%. I got big shoulders, and I'm embarrassed for our whole program that we put a product like that on the field," end quote. So I give Mac Brown props for coming out and kind of standing in front of the team and saying, he's the reason why they lost. It comes on me. I get it. Some people are even calling out for him to maybe step down and retire. I thought I saw that he said he has no intentions of retiring, but that's still a very embarrassing loss. I don't know what positives you can take from a loss such as that one. The team wasn't prepared, or the team overlooked JMU, thought they would get the easy victory, but JMU came in here and they did some yeoman's work. 70 points against an ACC school on the road, that's impressive. Shout out to JMU. But yeesh, that's rough for UNC. Well, with that, I'm going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back. On the other side of the break, I'll give you my top 5 locks for Week 5 action. Don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, Short Courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Now I want to give you my top 5 locks for Week 5 action, and we'll start in the ACC. I'm taking Miami over Virginia Tech, and this is easy for me. I'm taking Miami over its former Big East and now ACC opponent, Virginia Tech, in a game that should be lopsided for the Canes, especially after Miami just got finished posting a 50-piece against South Florida in their 50-15 victory over the South Florida Bulls. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, is a team that just can't figure it out. They've now lost against Vanderbilt and now Rutgers this past Saturday. Years ago, these would be teams that are bottom feeders in their respective conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten. But now they can both say that they've beaten Virginia Tech, a school with a better history of winning football than both of these teams combined. But I guess this year things are a lot different, and I miss big on Virginia Tech this season, honestly. I thought Virginia Tech was a better team than they've shown these past few weeks, and so I have to adjust and pivot. So that's why I'm taking Miami over VT in the ACC. In the Big 12, I'm taking Iowa State over Houston. Last weekend, I thought Houston would beat Cincinnati, but boy was I wrong. Cincy blanked Houston by a score of 34-0. So I'm picking Houston again this week, but instead I'm picking them to lose against a red-hot Iowa State team that is currently playing undefeated football right now. They beat Arkansas State last weekend by a score of 52-7. And looking at Iowa State's remaining schedule, they have a chance to go on a run here for the next few weeks. I look for them to handle Houston easily this upcoming weekend, so I'll take Iowa State over Houston. Then into the Big Ten, I'm taking Illinois over Penn State. Illinois is 4-0 for the first time since 2011, I believe. I read that. Illinois travels to Happy Valley for the first time since 2021 when the Illini pulled off the 20-18 victory over a then number 7 ranked Penn State back in 2021 in a game that went to 9 overtimes. These two teams made college football history by playing the longest game in the history of college football. I remember exactly where I was when I saw that news. I was in Austin, Texas for the Austin Film Festival. I was at the Driscoll Hotel bar, just kind of talking to other writers. And I looked down on my phone and I was like, oh, wow, 9 overtimes. I told the people around me, they're like, what? They thought that was the craziest thing ever, that Illinois and Penn State went to 9 overtimes, the longest game in the history of college football. That's crazy. Now, I don't think they'll go that long during this meeting, but Illinois is playing like a team that wants to make it to the Big Ten championship game. I'm not scared of Penn State. I'm really not. This is a prime game for Illinois to come in and beat Penn State. I'm sure it'll be whiteout conditions during that matchup. I think it's a primetime game, if I remember correctly. And I picked against Illinois the last 2 weeks, and I can't do it again. I'm going to do something real dicey here. I'm going to pick Illinois over Penn State. So I'm taking the Illini over their Nittany Lions. Then in the Pac-12, I'm taking Boise State over Washington State. I'm most intrigued by this matchup between Boise State, Washington State. The Broncos actually come into this matchup ranked at 25 with the 2-1 record over an unranked 4-0 Washington State team. So Washington State's not getting any sort of credit at all. This game is also a preview of a future Pac-12 matchup between these two schools beginning in the year 2026. Because if you recall, Boise State had decided to accept the offer to join the Pac-12 for the 2026 season with a few other teams. But in this matchup, this upcoming weekend, I'm going to take Boise State over Washington State in a game that I think will be closer than most people expect. But I just think Boise State has too much firepower on offense and defense. And I think they'll beat the Cougars pretty good this weekend. Then in the SEC, I'm taking Oklahoma over Auburn. I honestly thought the Sooners were going to lose by a lot more against Tennessee last weekend, but the Sooners stuck in there and they even outscored the Volunteers 12-3 in the fourth quarter to bring the score to 25-15. It may have been a disappointing loss to open up Oklahoma's first ever SEC game, but I think OU responds this weekend against Auburn, who is honestly going in the wrong direction, as it's clear they do not have an answer at quarterback, which is unfortunate because Naperville Central's finest, Peyton Thorne, had started the season at quarterback, but he was benched last week. In Auburn's matchup against Arkansas this past week, Tigers quarterback Hank Brown was picked off 3 times, and then Thorne, who started the second half, was picked off once as well. OU's matchup against Auburn is a good game to catch the Tigers while they're still slipping, and so for that reason, I'm taking Oklahoma to beat Auburn for their first SEC victory this weekend. So those are my picks. Let me run it down for you one more time. These are straight up predictions in the Power 5 conferences. In the ACC, Miami over Virginia Tech. In the Big 12, Iowa State over Houston. In the Big 10, Illinois over Penn State. In the Pac-12, Boise State over Washington State. And in the SEC, Oklahoma over Auburn. Well, I want to thank you all for listening to this podcast episode, and I hope everyone has a great start to their fall. I will be away these next couple of weekends for a wedding back in Chicago this weekend. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to record a podcast this weekend. But then the next weekends after that, kind of got some family stuff going on. So it truly is a start to the fall season. And there's so much stuff going on. I know it's happening during college football season, which some fans think is a no-no. Like, clear your schedule. Football on Saturday all day is what you should be doing. And I'm going to catch games where I can. I definitely will be glued to that Illinois versus Penn State game, especially because my buddy who's getting married went to Illinois. A lot of my friends that are going to be in the wedding will be glued to that game as well. So I'll definitely have some Illini fans really watching that game intently this upcoming weekend. I appreciate you guys listening to this podcast, for real. I love college football. I love doing this podcast every week. I may miss next week and a few weeks after that, but I'll release my top 5 picks straight up for you guys to kind of digest. But thank you guys for being a follower and friend of the show. Hope you have a great week. Can't wait to talk to you soon. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Peace. And it scares me because, shoot, I'm only 2 years away from becoming a real man at 40.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid.
Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.